Hello, hello. Good morning. Let's see, is there anyone here already? I'm just gonna pull up the chat. Hello from Canada. Hey, S7. How you doing? All right. I think everything is working fine. Perfect. All right. So today I want to try something different. Let me just bring in a reference. So yeah, before starting with today's session, I guess I just want to show you where we left off this call, but I'm not gonna work on this as of yet. Just one thing, I forgot to reset my Wacom tablet, so I'm gonna have to do that first because I lost my drivers. I'm probably gonna have to restart ZBrush. So let me just show you very quick. This is where we left off. I just added a few details here. These sort of things, to accentuate kind of like that bony surface and approaching kind of like a more organic, I don't know, maybe like H.R. Geiger type of vibe with this creature, with the skull of this creature. But I think I'm just gonna leave it as it is. I started working on the bottom area on the jaw, but still lots of work to do on this one. So again, it's more of the same. So I think in terms of like the techniques and the process and the workflow, that's covered in the previous streams. I covered most of it. So I'm just gonna leave it as it is. This could be a project that I could eventually, if I have time, finish. But I'm gonna leave it here, and today I'm gonna start something new. I have a cool idea. Let's see how it pans out. I want to do something more like a workshop type of thing, and I want to achieve something like this. This is a piece of an illustration that I did a while back, and I want to achieve something similar, like a more stylized, almost low poly type of thing. So this kind of vibe, that's the style that I'm going for, and I want to treat this kind of like a workshop. So if you're interested in generating something like this, I'm gonna try to move at a pace that is comfortable for everyone and start from the beginning. So if you want to follow along, I think that could be a good thing. So let me go ahead and restart ZBrush. And now the tablet should be working. All right, all good to go. Excellent. All right, so I think what I want to work on today is some kind of a, I don't know why I came up with this. I don't know, probably I had a dream or something, but like an alien abduction type of thing, like a low poly scene in the woods. So we're gonna have a few assets and then just create the scene. So it's gonna be an illustration type of thing. But yeah, let's go ahead, and I'm gonna do a quick drawing of what I mean, just so you get an idea roughly of what I'm trying to achieve here. So I'm gonna do some kind of very stylized low poly hut. I don't know if it's gonna be like that. We'll see. Just on the top of a mountain, and maybe we can have some fences there. Some sheep, or a cow, I don't know. So we're gonna do some assets for these, just surrounded by kind of like pine trees, or you know, just in the woods, and then the classic UFO abduction type of thing, right? And maybe stealing a couple of cows or sheep or whatever. So that's the rough idea of what I want to create, and for that we need to create a few assets as well. So I guess we're gonna start with that, just building the assets as part of this type of workshop type of thing, building all the assets, and then we just start putting everything together. But it's gonna be super simple in terms of sculpting. It's more about like organizing the scene. So for example, I don't know, I might just do, I don't know, some kind of wood pieces. So maybe say some wood planks for this area, maybe a square tile or something like that for the roof. Obviously the tree could be its own sort of, well, it's kind of like a leaf, but the tree would be its own piece that we can duplicate. The same thing goes for the shape here. It could be super simple as well. So those are the type of things that I'm going to work on very quick and just put together as a bundle or as a pack to use as a resource, and then we go ahead and continue doing the rest. So hopefully that's cool. Hey Marco, could you show us how you made the fur for the scarf on the monkey you posted a while ago on rendering marmoset? The scarf on monkey. I don't remember that. Sorry, don't remember that at all. Hey Felipe. Happy to be part of the extra mile. No worries, man. Thank you. Yeah, so another extra miler here today. All right, let's go ahead and start. So I'm gonna start with a let's start with the wood planks. So I'm gonna go ahead and turn this into a Q cube, and this again, it's gonna be very simple, but I'm gonna do maybe 3 sort of sizes just to be on the safe side, like that. And we can go ahead and dynamesh this, maybe a little bit more than that. Oops, smooth that. All right, so that's gonna be one of the wood planks, or one of the bases. Let's turn off symmetry off, and I'm gonna go ahead and duplicate these 3 times, and I'm just gonna move them like this. So the idea really is just to generate a few sizes just in case I need it. I might not, but let's just do it. All right. Cool. So I'm gonna start detailing this. Just using the damp sander brush, probably. Actually, let's use the knife brush, which is, you know, is based on the damp sander brush, but it has, you know, a more intense effect. So we can just generate these type of things a bit faster. So again, this is going to be very stylized. I'm not going to add too many details, especially because I'm going to duplicate these a few times, so I don't want to have very kind of like feature pieces. And also, you probably won't be able to see this at all because it's going to be tiny. But, you know, all right, let's go to the next one. and I'm gonna do this very quick because, you know, generating these assets is not something like it's not groundbreaking or anything. So I'll just keep it simple, and then we'll concentrate on the building of the scene, which is really what it's all about. And of course, this is like a pretty high then, or not that high, but it's almost 200,000 polygons for this asset. So we'll have to optimize that, and I'm going to use the decimation master for that. So pretty straightforward processes, really. All right, let's go ahead and do the same thing for the long one. I don't know if you noticed, but I'm sort of like struggling to grab the edge and then just do the entire lines here. So in that case, that's when I use this log camera so that I don't move it around, and that's actually pretty handy for these type of things when you're working on, I don't know, areas closer to the border. So instead of like trying to be very precise in how you grab it or when you start yours, at what point you start the stroke, you just log the camera and you don't have to worry about that. It's a pretty useful thing. All right. Let's see the chat. What are we sculpting today? So I don't know if I still have it. No. So I mentioned at the beginning I wanted to, you know, step away a little bit from that skull, that alien skull that we started working on. I think it's done for the most part, really. I mean, all the techniques and workflows that I wanted to show you guys are covered in the previous stream. So the rest is just, it's kind of like boring to sit down and watch just you know, me sculpting away little details, especially because it would be, I don't know, I think it would be better just as a time lapse, if anything. So I might just do that and let you guys see the process. But so today I think we're gonna work on, or we're working on a scene like an alien abduction, very low res or low poly stylized scene. I don't know why I thought that could be an interesting one, but we're gonna treat it kind of like as a workshop thing. So I'm gonna, you know, show you all the steps to produce that scene. All right, so that's looking good in terms of like, you know, basic shapes. We're gonna go ahead and add a few scratches just to make it a bit more interesting. Again, using the same brush. And of course, if you were to maybe do this in a for another I don't know, for a portfolio piece or something, you probably want to spend a bit more time than what I'm doing. But you'll see that at the end this is not going to be even that visible, so that's why I'm not too worried. And I'm working on each one of these separately in a different sort of like subtool, just so that I can then I can use them or duplicate them based on what I need, or even convert it into an insert brush. All right, so that's done. Let's go ahead and use the trim dynamic just to enhance that sort of stylized look a little bit, just to chip away some borders and make it less uniform, I guess, and more of a more organic. But I don't want to do something like super featured, like for example, I wouldn't go ahead and do that, because as soon as I start repeating this pattern, it's going to be pretty easy to identify this is the same thing. So I want to keep this as generic as possible, and this is something that I tend to do with anything that is kind of like a repetitive piece or a pattern. And then, you know, if I want to create something a bit more like a feature piece, then that's a separate thing. All right, Alright, so after this we're gonna do another pass, and then we optimize this mesh, and we'll be pretty much ready with this asset. You know? Okay. Just a quick pass of 3D dynamic to flatten some of these pieces. Alright, and let's do a quick polish. So clay polish for all of them, just to even further enhance the details, or polish the details, as well as stylizing those pieces. Great. Yep, I think that's fine. Now let's go ahead and optimize all of these. So we can create a new folder, call it originals, and it's gonna put everything in there and just duplicate everything and take it outside of the folder. And this is just in case I want to use I want to use them later. All right, so if I turn on polyframe, actually hang on a second, because I think I have ArtStation on. I'm getting some notifications. So for those who ask, this is kind of like the style that I'm going for, and this type of illustration, this type of vibe. Let's see. Amazing, no worries. Hey Nayan. Hey Felipe, yes, the series for illustrators enrollment is permanently open. So because those are the recordings of the workshop. So yeah, actually, I have it here. Yeah, so for those who don't know what Felipe is referring to, this is the latest course that I released, an intensive short course about illustrating with ZBrush. So it's about creating this type of actually this image. So it's a 5-day type of workshop, an intensive workshop, but you can go at your own pace because it's pre-recorded, and this is the illustration, the comic style illustration that I create during that course. So yeah, if you just go to the 3D Concept Artist website, it should be there. So go 3dconceptartistwebsite.com. I'll share it if you want, and just click on this, on the banner, and it will take you there. So yeah, you just click on get the course and you should be able to enroll there. Pretty easy. All right, so I want to optimize this because it's pretty high res now. So I'm gonna go to the C plugin, dog that to the right, to the decimation master, pre-process current. I should have already pre-processed all, but we'll do it one at a time. If you have multiples of those like I do have here, you can pre-process them all, but I'll just do it like this. I'm gonna set this to 5, pretty low res, even more than that. Let's go for 1% of what we currently had, or what we had before. All right, so we kept most of the details, and it is pretty low res. We can even push it a bit more. Let's try 0.1. That's gonna be, yeah, it's not too bad, right? So from the distance, again, this is gonna be super tiny. This is for the house, so it's gonna be really, really tiny, and you still have this very interesting stylized polygon, which is essentially what I want, really. So I'm happy with that. Let's go ahead and take this one, same thing, pre-process current, and we can use 0.1% to decimate it. So decimate current, there we go. That looks pretty decent. And same thing for this one, pre-process current and decimate. So that's why I also keep the originals in case I want to change the decimation to something else. But those wood planks, I think they work just fine. All right, that's it. So let's go ahead and reset the location. So I'm gonna click on the center to the unmasked areas, which in this case is everything. Click on the house to set it to the original position. So I have the 3 in there. Perfect. So quick save as well. And let's move on to the next next asset, which it would be maybe the tile for the roof of the house. So let's append a cube, select that, turn it into a cube, go into solid mode, and let's flatten that in the z-axis. And I think this one should be thin, but actually pretty low res, so we can use CModel for that. I'm gonna remove this edge here, so right click, delete edge loop complete, and just because, you know, we don't really need that one there, and instead let's go ahead and add a few in the middle, like using beveling like that. And I think this one should be pretty, yeah, this one should be fine. And I'm going to use the move brush with AccuCurve symmetry as well to just push this out a bit and give it a tiny little bit of a deformation. Not, I mean, not a lot, but so that it's not perfectly straight. Maybe actually let's get rid of symmetry and just work on some asymmetry. Right, and I think that works just fine. Cool. So this is gonna be a piece that we can use as a nanomesh object. Let's go ahead and see. Actually, we might have to, let me just think, because right now the polygons are pretty easy to see, very faceted polygons. So let's go ahead and, you know, run the same process that we did for the wood planks. So I'm gonna go ahead and dynamesh this with a higher resolution. There we go. And I'm gonna start smoothing this out. Again, I just wanna have a more organic piece. Maybe this is a little bit too thin. Let's scale that up a bit in the z-axis. There we go. And I'm gonna use the trim dynamic to work on the borders. I'm gonna also enable backface masking so that I don't affect the back faces, especially if I use a larger brush. And let's go over the edge a little bit. So I'm doing this really fast, but hopefully you'll see at the end it's gonna pay off. So far they're nothing impressive, just simple assets, but once we combine them together, I think they're gonna be pretty cool. All right, let's use the move brush, just adjust the shape a little bit, run a clay polish so we have some interesting, not details, but uneven surface, I guess. And let's do the same thing. Let's pre-process current, actually duplicate, have one in the originals just in case. Decimation master, pre-process current, yep, and decimate current. That's maybe too much. Let's go for 2. Let's go for 1. Okay, that's not too bad. Perfect. So we have 3 assets already, 3 wood planks and a tile, which is great. Let's see the chat. As an architect, I'm really fascinated by the potentials ZBrush has to explore. It's super fun to play around with millions of polygons at once. Yes, yeah, absolutely. I actually haven't done a lot of architectural stuff, like proper, you know, something that you could render and say, okay, this is kind of like a realistic architectural piece. But I've done a lot of more sci-fi environments that require that need of creating some kind of structure, and it's it's definitely something really handy. In fact, what we're working on today is you could say is architecture in a way, because we're gonna build a little house out of these pieces. But you know, that's that's the idea at least. So all right, let's go ahead and move on quickly. I'm gonna duplicate this, turn it into a Q sphere, go into solo mode, scale it up a bit and down, and I'm gonna dynamesh it. Oops, I think dynamesh it with less polygons. And let's go ahead and polish. All right, so this piece is going to be kind of like the, like a, I don't know if, how to call it, like a, it's not a, well, it's a rock. It's kind of like a giant pebble, like a slab of cement, but it's made out of a giant rock. I don't know the name. We can use that for the floor, kind of like the, yeah, like a giant pebble. That's what it is. Let's just call it. Let's call it giant pebble. So yeah, I'm just gonna smooth all of this and use the move brush to generate a more interesting shape. Let's clay polish that. And again, this is gonna be a piece that I'm gonna repeat, or reuse more than repeat. So I'm gonna make sure it's not super, not like oh no, my tablet is gone again. Oh no, where is it? Oh. Yeah, something's going on with my, maybe I ran out of battery actually. Just gonna work with a keyboard. All right, and if I go to the trim dynamic, use Dynamesh, we can generate the edges very quickly using this technique. But for the most part, it's going to be a flat rock. All right, let's clay polish. That's the rock. Perfect. Nothing too complicated. Let's go ahead and pre-process current. That's it, and decimate current. Perfect. I think that's good enough. All right, let's go ahead and rotate this 90 degrees so that we have everything. I forgot to duplicate it for the originals, but it doesn't matter. All right. Again. I'm gonna have to reset my tablet again. This is getting annoying. I don't know why this happens, to be honest. I don't know if you guys have experienced this, but it's a struggle every time there is an update for the drivers, and it's not necessarily the Wacom device. It's just something to do with the OBS, which I'm using to stream. Just give something off and it just breaks the tablet. It doesn't happen if I do anything else. All right, we're back in business. Cool. Hey Pablo, love the Melbourne insulation beard. Yes, I just thought let's try something new at least while we've been in this lockdown. Fair enough. Any other way to smooth and project all? I guess you'll have to be more specific for a project. Otherwise, increase the number of subdivision up to 7, but certainly level was not increased because number of the points is too much. Which destroy the mesh detail. Yeah, not entirely sure what you mean, Nayan. Any plugins for ZBrush which are faster than the native Dynamesh or the Zero Mesher? For what purpose though? Yeah, those are very specific questions about specific workflows. So, yeah, I would need more information, as in what's the outcome, what you wanted to achieve. to probably give you a better answer if I can. But yeah, we have 6 assets. Let's go ahead and create them, maybe like a sheep or a cow, just something simple. Again, it's gonna be very tiny, so I'm gonna append a sphere, so like that. Going to solo mode, and yeah, let's just scale this a little bit like that. Dynamesh that. That's gonna be the body. We can actually use the gizmo to, or actually, if we go to the deformation palette, now that we have stretched this on the z-axis, we can try to spherize this. Spherize? I don't know how to say that. Spherize, like so. So just play with this in the negative values, and you get like this kind of like peel shape. It's too much. Right, so that's that will be the body. That's it. That will be the body. I'm gonna duplicate, holding control and click and drag. This will be the head. Like that. We can actually, yeah, let's duplicate this one more time. Control, click and drag. Rotate 90 degrees. And this could be the face. Let's clear that. Rotate everything 90 degrees so that I can work with the symmetry. So in the x-axis, and everything is at different polygroup at this point. I haven't dynamesh anything, so I'm gonna auto group, and perhaps hang on. Yep. I'm gonna use the move topological, just to with symmetry, just to give it a bit more shape. Hang on, this is not in the center of the world. There we go. And I think we need some let's do a bit of sculpting here. So I'm going to use the clay brush to add some nostrils, some very prominent nostrils, just to indicate that this is some kind of bovine creature. So you can decide what it is. It could be a cow, it could be a sheep, doesn't matter. Yeah, I think that's fine. And let's go ahead and maybe dynamesh this, and we can work on the face a little bit more. You know what I think we need is, let's use the insert primitive, and we're gonna insert a peel shape here for the ears. Make sure I have a local symmetry so that I work on the symmetry of the actual object, the volume, and this is gonna be the ear. Let's go back to the move brush, move topological. All right. I mean, it's not great, but you'll see once we do decimation. That's what I'm going, really fast with this, because once we decimate and add a few more pieces, this is going to look a lot better, especially because it's going to be a tiny little stylized piece. I'm going to go ahead and use the same insert brush with a cylinder. There we go. I'm going to click and drag, and that's going to be the legs with the hooves and everything. All right, let's go ahead and control click and drag to other ones at the back. All right, so this looks super silly, but you'll see in a second what I'm trying to achieve with this is not a perfect sculpt, that's for sure. All right, so I'm gonna dynamesh all of these, maybe with a bit more resolution, and then I'm gonna polish, clay polish, smooth some areas like so, and maybe add with the damp standard brush, we can add some indications for the eyes. Right, let's dynamesh again, clay polish, and we can use the decimation master. Let's duplicate this. And I know this looks this looks ridiculous right now. It will look better once we have a bunch of these ones. So let's actually, you know what? I think the head is massive. Should be. I think we can do something a bit more interesting if it's smaller. So I'm gonna mask that out. Bring in the gizmo, send it to the unmasked areas, and just make it tiny. Yeah, much better. Redynamesh, clay polish. So now we can pre-process current, and we're gonna go really, really low. 0.1 again should be good. Yeah, so this is what I'm looking for. So I lost a few of the details here, but that is ultimately what I want, because this is gonna be like this tiny. So we don't need it to be anything complex or anything. All right, so cool. We have, let's go ahead and unify that. So we have the 1 2 3 4 5 assets. What else could we need? Maybe let me think. Now I think we're gonna start with this, and then if we need to, we just add a few things. I mean, the other pieces like the UFO, the house itself, those are more feature pieces. So we're gonna build those in just a second, but I think we are good. Hang on. Well, heavy meshes faster dynamesh take a lot of time when the polygons count is high. Yeah, you can use it again. It really depends on what you want to do, but you can use, for example, if you have two really high like two very dense meshes together, and you want to sort of like merge them to create a single piece but keep all the details, you could decimate them separately and then unify those, or you can, if they're intersecting, you can use the gizmo and use the cog icon here to use the remesh by union. And the remesh by union is kind of like straightforward way to boolean everything together. So yeah, hopefully that helps. All right, I'm gonna build the house, the mountain, and the UFO. Oh, you know what? We're missing the tree, but the tree is gonna be pretty simple. So what I'll do is I'm gonna work on a separate mesh. Let's do a quick save. Click on a C-sphere, and I'm gonna click and drag. this is going to be the trunk of the tree. So scale this down a bit, and let's add a couple of branches, or subsections for the branches. And let's move these ones like so. So again, I'm gonna go for this super stylized thing. So let's see, I think something like this would just work fine. All right, yeah, something like that would work just fine. So let's go ahead and go to the, where are we? Adaptive skin. And I'm gonna leave the Dynamesh with a lower resolution. Let's preview that. Maybe this is too much. So just to try to set a very low res. Let's go for 15 or 16. Here in the Dynamesh resolution, preview that. Yep, so that's much better. So I'm gonna make adaptive skin. Here we go. And I'm gonna use the insert brush to add some spheres, some low poly spheres like this one, an icosphere. And I'm gonna push this down in the depth palette. So this is something that you have in the depth palette here on the brush palette. So depth, hang on, I'm gonna turn off the chat. There we go. So you can click on this thing and just push it. So when you insert it, it actually inserts a little bit more embedded into the mesh. Yeah, I said I was gonna go for some pine trees, but let's just do. I think this one is more interesting for the type of thing we're building. Done. Let's clear the mask. Let's Dynamesh everything together. Clay polish. And this is getting a tiny little bit, maybe too thin. So I'm just gonna increase this a bit. But that's good. Let's go ahead and now copy this, send it to the working tool where we have all the assets, paste that. Let's unify that so that it's within a reasonable scale. Duplicate that, and I'm gonna send it to the originals. And this duplication, go to solo mode, decimate current, sorry, pre-process current first, and now we can decimate this to 1. Perfect. So you see, that's why I'm not trying to do anything perfect with the sculpture, because we just need to concentrate on the volumes, and then once we do the decimation, we're gonna get this sort of style, low poly style. So it's all about setting up concentrating on the silhouettes and the primary forms. So if I turn on my thumbnail, which you guys can see, right? It's all about that silhouette on the top left corner. So that's what I'm going for. Same thing with this. It's all about the silhouette. But this one doesn't have a great silhouette, but you can tell it's some kind of in fact, I think the legs are too long. Let's make it a bit more cute. Center that. Right. So I think this works a little bit better for the style. So yeah, it's all about the silhouette. Cool. So we have trees. We have all right. I think we have most of the assets that we're gonna use as a repetition. Now we can concentrate on the house. That's gonna be kind of like a feature asset. So what I'll do is create a new folder for all of these pieces. Let's call this one just pieces. All right, and then I'm gonna bring in a I'm gonna append a cube. Select that. I'm in solo mode. Let's cube that, and this is gonna be the one that we're gonna use to create the house. So again, I'm gonna go for something super simple. We're gonna use the same technique that I've been showing you in terms of producing a low res mesh, but we're gonna use, I want to start with that, and we're gonna use the C modeler. So let's scale this a tiny bit more. Maybe like that. And I'm going to duplicate it, and I'm going to create the roof. Okay, this is going to make sense in just a second, I think. Let me just do a quick sketch, or a quick reference sketch for myself, so that I know what I'm trying to achieve here. So I think I'm going to make just a roof like that. I don't know. Oh, yeah. Something that goes like this, and maybe have some poles or some columns there. And then you have the rest there. And we have the door, maybe a window. And I have some references of like a few houses here, but I'm just trying to create something more stylized than what I have here. So this is kind of like the porch, and a chimney there. Right? Just a quick sketch. So for this, I'm gonna mask these points, invert that, bring them closer. Same thing there. Right, so I think that's good. Maybe the bottom part is too high. I'm gonna try to work with those with kind of like the golden ratio in this case. All right, something like that. Yeah, that should be fine. Let's use the insert brushes. So I'm gonna use a cylinder, yeah, for the poles. Actually, now that I think about it, we can use the tools that were already created instead of adding more. Yeah, let's do that. So I think we can just leave it as it is. Actually, I'm just gonna duplicate only this area here. Hang on. I'm just trying to think what would be the best way to go about it. I'm gonna scale this. I think as a base, this already works. It's it's working. So I'm just gonna start bringing some pieces and duplicating it. So I'm gonna take perhaps this middle one, duplicate it, send it down, and that's gonna be one of the maybe the big beams or something that is holding the roof together. Control click and drag to duplicate. I'm just gonna rotate it around, and again, just so that it doesn't look like it's the same piece. All right, so we have that there. I think that works. Let's go ahead and bring in another one. So maybe the long one, duplicate. I actually need to unify that, and we're gonna use this one. I mean, you can do this with the insert meshes as well, but I think just to show you another approach, maybe this is gonna be for the roof. So let's leave this one here. I'm gonna try to align it with the curvature that I created for the roof here. Not the curvature, sorry, the angle. So you'll see that the pieces that we build are actually super simple, but once we start putting it all together, it makes a big difference. Let's rotate this 180 degrees. All right, maybe push this forward a tiny bit more. There we go. And then this piece we can simply we can just go ahead and mirror and weld this without local symmetry, of course. So it's coming along. Let's go ahead and duplicate this one more time. Send down, unified, and this is going to be for the top, maybe top, and yeah, just for the top. Rotate it on 90 degrees. Scale it down, maybe up. So I guess what I'm trying to show with this process and workflow is once you have the assets and you have the planning ready, this is, you know, coming up with a more interesting and detailed composition and scene is rather easy. All right, I'm gonna reuse that actually, so I'm gonna duplicate that, and this is gonna be, you know, a beam that we can use for some details around the house. So just duplicating the same asset that we have, and you know, reusing it across the house thingy. Like that. Yeah, let's do one at the back as well. And let's clear the mask, and you know, we have these pieces sort of sticking out. So you don't like that, we can use hold Control and Shift, and we can use the trim curve, and the side that has the shadow is the one that's going to be clipped or trimmed. So I'm going to do something like that, and mirror and weld. Oops, mirror first and then mirror and weld. Actually, if we mirror and weld, we lose the asymmetry, so I'm just gonna do it manually. There we go. Cool. Let's do a quick save. So hopefully you see what we're trying to achieve. I'm gonna go ahead and bring in the medium size one. This one, I think that's the one. So that's the large, no, this one. So duplicate that, push that down, and this one is going to be as well part of the details of the house, maybe the front one. So rotate it 90 degrees, scale that down, and we can play with the thickness as well. Just to have a different sort of pattern in there. So that's cool. Let's go ahead and do the same thing for the bottom. But we want to have some, like a door in here. So I'm just gonna scale this like so. Maybe rotate it 180 degrees so we have some, you know, a different detail. All right, just place that there, and you know what, we can actually use this as a, you know, as our tool to create the door frame and the actual door. So I'm gonna Control click and drag, duplicate that, rotate it like so, 90 degrees. And this is going to be the frame for the door. So I'm going to put it around there. Control click and drag. Another one there. Control click and drag. Hang on. Let's actually rotate this 180 degrees so that it's different. Control click and drag. Rotate. Rotate. So yeah, it's mainly that. It's just duplicating pieces, rotating them, and build step by step the pieces. I'm gonna take this one as well. Hang on. I'm gonna clear the mask, and of course this is in a single subtool, but we can just do a quick auto group so that we have different pieces and we can isolate them. So I'm gonna isolate this one, mask it, invert the selection, invert the mask, bring in the gizmo, center to the unmasked areas, hold Control, click and drag, and then just put it somewhere there. And we have to clip that as well. Cool. So let's go ahead and use the clipping curve to clip all that. So that's one. That's two, and around there. Perfect. Cool. So again, bit by bit we'll build in the house. I'm gonna actually bring in the long one, the long piece. Duplicate that. Let's unify that, and I'm gonna run like another piece around the edge, not around the edge, sorry, around the side of the house. So click and drag to rotate. Do the same thing, and I'm going to scale it to sort of match this piece in here. All right. So that's it, and let's go ahead and mirror and weld. Cool. So we have that piece there, and I think we're just missing kind of like some poles for the sides. So I'm going to take this one and duplicate it. Control click and drag, rotate around. So yeah, it's mainly for the corners. And this is kind of like another good way to hide those corners as well. There we go. Let's clear the mask. And we can use the move brush just to adjust this slightly. All right. So I think that's cool. Let's create the windows and the door. So for the door, we're gonna use the small piece. So let's duplicate that. Let's go into unified. I'm gonna go into solo mode real quick here. Rotate 90 degrees. 90 degrees. So I'm gonna use or reuse these to create that door. So hold Control, click and drag. So that's gonna be a piece like this. Control, click and drag. All right, so it just created this sort of a tiling pattern. Control, click and drag. Duplicate it like this, and maybe do this. So it's not very even. Clear the mask, and then we can just use the trim curve to, whoops, do that and that. So that's gonna be the door. Perfect. Centered, scale like so. Bring it the rest of the mesh, and then just position this. So that's just a quick way to generate something more interesting than, you know, yeah, just like a pattern type of thing. And again, this is why I said at the beginning when we were building the assets that we can do something really, really simple, and once we decimate it, we can capture a few of the details, and that's about it really. How can I increase the number of subdivisions 6 or 7 for skin details because my mesh poly count is too high in Dynamesh? I wouldn't go for more than, like, for details, and when I'm working on high frequency details like pores and things like that, like skin, I don't go over 4 subdivision levels, 4 or 5 tops. Basically depending on the base mesh really, but if my active point counts is, you know, 5 million or something like that, that's kind of like when I stop doing the details, and that usually is not enough for sorry, that's what I stop doing the subdivision, but that's usually not enough for high frequency details like pores and all that. So when I reach that level, I just move into HD geometry, which is, you know, kind of like virtual details in a way. And you can have, you know, 50 million polygons. So that's kind of like the workflow when you reach that level and you need more details. All right, hopefully that helps. Duplicate, and just in case you don't know what HD geometry is, if you go to the HD geometry subpalette here, you can just divide this, and it's kind of like added on top of the subdivision level. So normal subdivision level, you go up to 4 or 5, that's what I do, and then move into geometry HD for those details. All right, I'm gonna unify this, and I'm gonna build the, what was I building? Just the frame for a window. Went blank for a second. All right, so this is gonna be the frame. Control click and drag. Let's rotate that 90 degrees. That's gonna be kind of like in the center of the window. Control click and drag. Rotate that one more time. That's the top of the window. Actually, I'm gonna mask this and push this in a bit. Centered, and I'm gonna hold control click and drag to rotate it 90 degrees, and then 90 degrees again. Let's position that nicely there, and forward a bit, not all the way. Hold control click and drag for the other side, and maybe let's do 6 little windows like this. Oh, that looks more like a jail thing. Let's just keep it simple. Cool, so we have the window there. Scale it down, and we can potentially just put one in here, one in front, although I did in the sketch like a rounded window, but I think this one would work just fine. I'm thinking I'm gonna use just the bottom one to be kind of like the ledge of this window. So let's select that one here, solo mode. I'm gonna mask that, invert the mask so I can move that by itself. There we go. Let's select the window again, and we can duplicate that for the other side, or for one of the, yeah, for the sides really. Rotate 90 degrees, and let's just place that as well. All right, I think I'm just gonna do the same thing. I could just delete the bottom piece really. So let's we have separate meshes. Let's do auto group. Now we can hide that tiny sketch. So auto group, control shift and click to isolate, invert the selection. Let's invert the selection and delete hidden. And we can just place this in. All right, and we can also mirror and weld that. Before I do that, actually, because this one we want to keep it asymmetric, let's just duplicate and clear the mask, duplicate. In this duplicate version, I'm going to hide this one, delete hidden, and I'm going to mirror that one. So now we have 1, 2, 3 windows. We could potentially do one here, so let's just maybe select this one, right? Yeah, let's select that one. Mask everything, invert the mask, center to the unmasked areas, hold control, click and drag, and I'm gonna do one here at the bottom. But this is gonna be maybe on the side. So what we can do is auto groups, and I'm gonna hide these pieces, delete hidden. Let's unmask, delete hidden, and am I just going to isolate this? So I'm gonna split this one. So let's go ahead and split hidden. So now this is in a separate subtool, and we can bring in the trim curve. Cool. All right, so nearly there. How are we doing with time? Yeah, we have plenty of time. This is kind of like the most complex object, really. So yeah, let's think what would be the next thing. We're gonna do some kind of porch type of thing, but we'll leave it for the end if we have time. We might not be able to finish it today, but I reckon the scene as it is will be finalized. All right, so I'm gonna select the base of the roof, right, and isolate that, and I'm gonna use the C modeler, and what I'll do is separate or create a different geometry just for that roof. So I'm holding Alt and tagging those polygons with the C modeler, and I'm going to right click with the Q mesh selected. I'm going to click and drag holding Control, and that's kind of like to extract this piece, but I'm going to do it very close like so. And we're going to also auto group. Now I can hold Control Shift and isolate this, split hidden. So now we have this piece that we can use to have some fun with the nanomesh. I'm actually going to delete these ones in the middle. We don't really need that. Let's delete. And I'm gonna delete these edge loops as well, because I want something a bit more consistent. So literally these are just planes. So I'm gonna right click on an edge, I'm gonna insert multiple edge loops. So let's click and drag, and as you drag, obviously you create more of this. So I'm gonna go for something like that. I'm gonna click on the other side, and ZBrush will remember the settings. Let's do the same thing here, and I'm trying to achieve a proportional squared type of polygons. So click and drag, maybe this one, let go, click, and that's it. Give it a single polygroup or single ID. Perfect. So now we can go to select the move brush. So now we have this piece that we can use to apply one of the meshes that we created, the tile. So let's go ahead and do that. And I believe maybe we might have to move this away a little bit, or actually scale it with symmetry, move it away a tiny bit, just so that there is no overlapping with what we're gonna make now, which is the the tiles for the roof. So let's go to the pieces that we had. I'm gonna select the roof, go into solo mode. So this is the roof tile, right? And I'm gonna create a new insert mesh. You guys cannot see that. Let's do it from the right hand side. So under the create palette here in the brush palette, I'm gonna click on create insert mesh, new. So now we have an insert mesh that we can use to generate these tiles manually if we wanted to, which could be an interesting way to do it, but I'm gonna try to achieve the same, a more uniform result with nanomesh. So now that we have an insert mesh, let's click on nanomesh brush. So now we have a nanomesh brush. Let's go back to the working file. Oh, this is the working file. And let's go to the piece that we generated. There we go. So this is the roof. We can get out of solo mode if we want, but I'm going to right click on a face, and we already created that nano brush. So right click, let's click on polygroup all, so that we apply that tile to everything, or to every polygroup, which in this case is just one, and click and drag, and this is what we get. Awesome. So that's what I'm looking for, really. Turn on polyframe, but of course with nanomesh we can go ahead and tweak it a little bit and make it a more organic, and play around with the settings a bit more. So let's go ahead and open up nanomesh, and let's see, we can play with the size, but actually what I want to is variate the scale so that not all of the tiles are the same, so they don't look like one tile. Hang on, I'm just checking out the chat. Do you have subdivisions when working on a 3D printing model? Yes, except when I haven't done a lot of 3D printing, but when I set them up, I remove all the subdivisions, but in the working file I would always have subdivisions, probably. Thank you. Quick save. What's your favorite set of brushes you have made in ZBrush guide website? I think I don't know, it's hard because they're, I would say there are like certain brushes that are favorite for specific purposes, but they're so different that, yeah, it's hard to tell. I wouldn't say my favorite brushes are the fiber mesh over the clay brushes, because they're for completely two different things. So yeah, I wouldn't say one over the other, but yeah, I would say the clay brushes are pretty good. Like, it creates a a different feel to the sculpts, so I kind of like that. But yeah. Alright, so what I'm doing here is just varying the width and the length of those tiles. So just playing with the width and length, and also the variation slider here. And of course we can see that in real time, which is pretty cool. And I'm also going to rotate it so that it feels like one is, they're actually overlapping each other. So that could be with the rotation in the X axis. So like that. And we can also add a variation to this. So some of them are sticking out more than the other. And of course they're a little bit big, so we can, play with the size. I'm gonna also rotate a little bit on the Y-axis and just offset them a tiny bit more so that we don't see. Actually, let's hide the placement, which is the plane, so we don't see that. And now we can play with the offset. and vary the offset as well, tiny bit. All right, and then because this is still an nanomesh and they're placed on that plane, we can actually manipulate that plane, right? We can take this. So I'm gonna tweak it just a bit, just to so it doesn't overlap those beams, and maybe hide. I'm gonna select the show placement. I'm gonna mask these ones here at the top, invert, and just bring them down a tiny bit. All right, and this side is not working. They're actually all following the same, they're aligning the same way. So this side is working, but this one is inverted. So let's see if changing the alignment works. Otherwise we just delete that part and duplicate it. But so if we change this to the short edge, the alignment, nope, long edge works better. It's kind of like the same thing. Yeah, no, it's just gonna be easier if we just do this. So let's go into solo mode, show placement. I'm gonna hide this other side and delete hidden. And again, this is just a plane, so we can duplicate the entire plane, and it will duplicate the nanomesh and mirror that. So now we have two planes with two nanomeshes. So we just need to hide them like that. And they're going through a little bit in here, so I'm just gonna scale that. Great. And again, this is just a plane, so we can push it out. And of course, because again, it is just a plane, we can take the move brush and adjust just the placement of that plane without altering or affecting the proportional, or yeah, the proportion of the tiles. Oh, this one is weird still. Let's rotate that to 0. That's why they were sort of sticking out. My bad. All right. Cool. So that's about it for this tiny house. It will look a lot better once we do some poly paint or add some colors. But let's go ahead and do the chimney, just so that we can wrap this up. I'm gonna append a cube. Select that, cube it. That's just gonna be here on the side. Alright, and then I'm gonna hold Control, click and drag to duplicate, and that's kind of like the top. In fact, you know what, let's undo all that. I'm gonna do it with the zero meshes so that I can actually create a hole. So get into solo mode, let's go with the C modeler. I'm gonna tag these polygons, right click, and actually, yeah, let's do that. Right click, inset, and I'm gonna make sure the inset region is selected so that I can inset all of this. So maybe more than that. And then we can take this green polygroup, QMesh, polygroup all, extrude that like so. And then we can tag these polygons here on the outside. Right, and the same thing, click and drag, that's gonna create that border. Oops. And then we can tag this and even, you know, push it down a bit more. All right, that's the chimney completed. What we can do with this is actually turn it into a dynamesh with more resolution. There we go. And use the hang on, I lost my shortcut. Yeah, use the trim dynamic, like what we did with the rest of the pieces, and that sort of helps to maintain, you know, the stylization for all of these pieces. I'm gonna have to dynamesh it with more resolution. All right. There we go. And let's do clay polish. And the same thing with that we've been doing. So decimate current or pre-processed current and decimate to 1. Pretty good. All right. So I think the house is pretty much done. Can reposition this a bit better. Something like that. All right. Yeah, I think it's getting there. Maybe let's use the insert brush with an icosphere. This one, just to do a door handle. Yeah, nothing crazy there. There we go. All right, so I think this is done for the most part. I still want to stylize it a little bit more. So what I'm going to do is make a folder for the entire house. We'll duplicate that and we play around with some variations, and that's kind of like a cool thing that I can show you. So I'm gonna call this house OR, put everything in there. So all the pieces that we use. All right, and then I'm gonna click on the cog icon of the folder and I'm gonna duplicate the entire thing. Click OK. All right, so now we can hide this one, and this is the one that we're gonna utilize. So before I combine everything, I'm gonna convert the nanomesh. So let's go to the nanomesh palette, go to inventory, 1 to mesh. Same with this one, 1 to mesh, and of course we need to delete the actual plane. So isolate that. Oops, hang on. Isolate that. Delete hidden. Same thing with the other plane. Select that. Hide the plane. Delete hidden. So now these are all meshes, but you know, we only have 23,000 polygons, so this is like super low res. And what we can do now is click on the cog icon and let's merge folder. So merge folder will give us a single piece and it's going to hide everything. We still have everything in the folder. So this is how this is how the house is looking. We're going to auto group everything just so that it's nicer to see. Turn off the line and you'll see it's a pretty decent, you know, little house. Nothing too, you know, too crazy, but remember this is going to be like this big, somewhere there with perspective. So what I want to do is stylize it a little bit more, and we can do that with the gizmo. So I'm gonna center that, right? Click on the cog icon and we can play with things like the taper deformer or the twist. So we can add a little bit of tapering. Oops, I think for some reason there was some yeah, I don't know what I did there, but I just added some unwanted mask. So taper, so we can go like this, right? Maybe that is too much, so we can take the opacity of the Y or the Y axis. All right, and we can tweak these as well. So let's change the exponent a bit more. So I'm rounding this a little bit to make it a bit more interesting, really. That's all I'm doing. All right, click OK. And let's use the twist as well. Let's see, we twisted it a tiny bit. So it looks like it's sort of about to fall, just a tiny bit there. And let's accept that as well. and let's use the skew deformer, and we're gonna skew it towards the left maybe, and maybe towards the back maybe a bit. Click OK. All right, so you'll see with those little deformations and those little adjustments, the house looks a little bit better. Oh no, I lost my, hang on. Yeah, I lost my tablet again. Great. All right, so yeah, I think this looks more interesting than before. So if I do a couple of screenshots to show you, let's do Shift S and show the other one. Right, so we have this one, which is, yeah, it's cool, it's straight, but the other one looks better with the kind of like the stylization that I'm going for. So I quite like the deformation of this one. So let's hide that one, stick with this one. And let's see if you guys have any questions about these. There are so many tools that make your life easy in ZBrush. I use ZBrush now for 2.5 years, and I model with other software since almost 20 years. I feel like I know in ZBrush 5% of the software potential. Heiko, like I said, you know, it's about knowing certain processes. Once you lock in sort of the core principles and the main things that you could do with ZBrush, that's it, as long as you know the potential. So in other words, if you understand some of the basic processes that you can, and you're comfortable with those, like subdivision, dynamesh, that sort of thing, that's really all you need. And then on top of that, instead of like knowing precisely all the details and all the tools, you just need to know that it can be done. So if you don't know how to do a specific thing, you just need to know that, yes, ZBrush can do that. And it's just a matter of when you get to that, if you have the need to do those, I don't know, I can't think of an example right now, but let's say the tiles, right? These tiles. So you can achieve the same thing by sculpting with Dynamesh a single tile. You can duplicate it manually and create the same thing manually, right? That is knowing that core principle, that core process in ZBrush, knowing how to create that, so you can achieve the same thing manually, right? But then once you know that, is how you can improve your workflow and improve maybe the speed at which you work. So you can take that knowledge that you have, which is basic sculpting and going through building those pieces, and say, all right, what can I do to improve this? How can I place this or duplicate it a little bit better? And that's when you start learning other processes like nanomesh, right? But it comes with the need of a specific project, I guess. So I wouldn't worry too much about knowing every single palette and every single tool, as long as you know the basics. When you get to when you feel the need to improve certain things and improve your workflow, that's when you start building that knowledge base of extra features. I guess that's how I see it. Comics Legend, no. Of ZBrush? No. All right. How did you dynamesh the nanomesh? How did you dynamesh the nanomesh? I haven't done that. I haven't dynameshed the nanomesh. There's still, there's still meshes. They're not dynamesh. So all I did was I selected the nanomesh, and if you go to the nanomesh palette, if you go to the inventory, click on one to mesh, and that will convert the nanomesh into real geometry that you can manipulate. And then I just deleted the plane. That's all. All right, so we have the house. Let's do a quick save. Let's go ahead and establish the scene, just so that we have a sense of the scale. So I'm gonna bring in, I'm gonna append one of these ones that I rarely use. Append terrain 3D. Let's rotate that. Oops, not that one. 90 degrees, and scale that. Okay, something like that. It's gonna be at the top of the mountain here. Or something like that. Yeah. Before I do anything, before I do anything else with this, enable symmetry, and I'm gonna hold Control, and I'm gonna mask most of the mountain or the hill, and I'm gonna hold Control and click on the mask to blur it. Now I can take the unmasked areas and I'm gonna try to flatten so that I don't have that piece in there. So right, and then I'm gonna clear that mask. Oops. All right, so that I can frame it like this in a render, right? So that's cool. Let's go ahead and maybe I'm gonna duplicate this piece, and you'll see why in a second. And I'm gonna divide this one. This is gonna be the one that you'll see probably, and I'm gonna get closer here because I want to flatten this area a little bit more. So I'm gonna bring in the gizmo. I'm gonna select the cog icon, go to flatten. You always miss it here. Oops, it has subdivision level. That's why. Should have done it beforehand. Anyway, we don't have to use this. We can use the clip brushes. This is a simple process. So the clip is gonna push everything, every part of the geometry down based on that sort of like wherever the shadow is pointing. So there. All right, and then we can just reposition this a bit better. Cool, and of course we can smooth this out a bit more. All right, so that's working. Let's go ahead and add the pebbles. So that would be with an insert brush, I think, or an insert brush. So let's create that. So that would be under the pieces. Select that one, go into solo mode. So this is going to be the piece that we're going to insert. So I'm going to click on the brush thumbnail, create an insert brush, new, and I'm just going to make sure that the insertion point is way below the surface so that it looks more flat than what it really is. And that's the reason why I left this secondary sort of plane, or not plane, but duplicate of the entire environment. I'm just gonna push it down a bit. All right, so let's toggle symmetry off, and I'm just gonna add the pebbles. To create like an entrance, and of course it helps if we variate the size. So again, this is going to be pretty subtle, and it's not all the way anyway. All right, that's all I wanted to do. something that it doesn't look that, something that looks a little bit better. All right, let's add the trees. So again, the same thing. Let's go actually for the trees. Now let's just do the same thing. So let's select the tree, go into solo mode. Let's turn that into an insert brush as well. We can append it to the current one. So let's create an insert mesh, append to the pebble. Click OK. All right, and then we can just play with the indentations, not indentation, the insertion, the depth. And I'm going to select the same plane that I'm using. And from the top, just click and drag. Yep, I think that looks good. I'm going to try to maintain the nice silhouette. Yeah, I just want some trees around the house, not a lot. And I kind of like that because I'm inserting them based on the normal of the terrain, they sort of like follow that, follow the terrain like that. So I think I like that. So we can also use this brush with the trees to create some kind of bushes. So we just push this down even more. We just see kind of like the top of that tree, and that could be a simple way to generate these ones. Let's do it closer here. Maybe more. So we can reuse some of the assets for this type of thing. Let's clear the mask. All right, so I think that's looking good. We definitely need to put the sheep, and we have 20 minutes, so I reckon we put the sheep and we'll work on the UFO next time, and we add some colors and all that. But yeah, let's use actually, yeah, let's put the sheep first. So select that, go into solo mode. Again, I'm gonna add it as an insert mesh. Now that I think of, this could be good as a nanomesh as well, so we can distribute it randomly. So I'm gonna select this, create insert mesh, new, create nanomesh brush, and then let's go to this terrain, to the one that has subdivisions. And I'm gonna, before I insert this, I'm gonna use let's use the move brush, go into solo mode, and I'm gonna duplicate actually this entire thing, and I'm gonna delete lower, and I'm going to actually, before I delete lower, I wanna achieve, I wanna have it doesn't really matter, but I want to have less polygons. I'm going to delete lower and higher, so I have this amount of polygons. That's enough. And what I'll do is mask an area where I want to place those sheep around there, and then we can invert the mask, and so like protect some of these areas, so that when we use nanomesh, actually we're not adding sheep or these animals anywhere close to these areas. This will make more sense in just a second. So I'm just masking a rough area where I would place some of these sheep. All right, and then remember I duplicated this one, so in solo mode, let's go in solo mode. What I'll do is I'm gonna go to the geometry palette, and let's go to edge loop. And here under the edge loop, is it here? Yeah, under the edge loop, I'm going to click on edge loop mask border. So what this is going to do is it's going to create a border, like a very smooth border around the masked areas. So you'll see it is very smooth. And then what I can do is, using the selection tools, let's clear the mask first. We can smooth this even more by using the smooth groups. So if I bring in my tools here, I can use the smooth by groups. So that's going to be very smooth. Then I can hold Control and Shift to hide everything but this piece, and I'm going to delete it. So let's delete hidden. And now we can do a quick zero measure. Like I said, the amount of polygons doesn't really matter, but let's just keep it simple. All right. So now we have this piece where we can randomly place those sheep. So let's select the brush that we just created with the sheep. Right click, polygroup all, and I'm going to click and drag. So that essentially builds or creates one of these sheep for each one of these polygons, which is fine for now. But what we can do now is go to the nanomesh, right? It's a lot of this. So nanomesh, and the first thing I want to do is offset them so that they're actually not embedded into the grass. So that is offsetting Z. Yeah, somewhere there. And to place them randomly, we can just use the random distribution, and that allows us to actually play with the amount of this sheep. So they're just all over the place. We have a lot or not that many. Yeah, totally up to you. And also we can rotate them. So in the x-axis, oops, not that one. In the z-axis, right? So we can rotate them so they look in different directions, and we can obviously randomize that so this is a bit more interesting. And just so that it feels like there are different sizes as well, we can play with the width. Let's put that to 1.5. Whoops. 1.5, 1.5, 1.5. Hang on, what am I doing? Yeah, 1.5, 1.5. And then play with the variation of all of these ones to set them to 2. Just slightly, right? And then we can play with the overall size of this. There we go. So it looks good. And because they're nanomesh, we can, go ahead and edit only one, and it will affect all of them. All right, so we have the animals ready. Let's go to subtool, and I'm gonna hide. And let me just think. Okay, so first of all, for the nanomesh, what I'll do, I'm gonna hide placement so that we only see this. This is the actual, ground that we should see, and this is what we use as an insert mesh or an insert brush. So I'm gonna hide this and split hidden. So we have the rest of these assets in a separate mesh, and we can just take this one and make it part of the originals. All right, so that's looking good. We can definitely go ahead and take this, the kind of like the ground plane or the mountain, and also stylize it a little bit, but that's something that maybe we can do later on. We have about 15 minutes. Let's do the UFO. I reckon we can finish it in terms of blocking. So let's append a cylinder. Go into solo mode. Let's do a quick save as well. And rotate around 90 degrees. And we're gonna use this one to build that UFO. In fact, I'm gonna delete this and work on a separate tool, just because I want to select the cylinder, but I want to edit the properties before I create a polymesh. So with the primitive selected, I'm going to click on initialize, and I'm going to reduce this to 16 by 3. Now make polymesh 3D, and now we can work with this. So because I created the 16 sides, I know for a fact that's going to be a precise number. I can also use symmetry with radial count of 16 in the y-axis. Yep, so now I can affect every single part, every polygon of those that side, every every polygon that creates that that shape of the cylinder. So basically, if I select the C-modeler, I can click once, and because I have symmetry in that axis and I have exactly the same amount of points in the radial symmetry as I set up in the initialize tab, I can manipulate all of this. So what I'll do first is just give it this initial shape for the UFO, and then I'm going to bring in the C-modeler, right click, insert region, polygroup all, click and drag. Oops, let's tag these polygons at the top. Hang on, what's going on? Insert region, right? I'll do the same thing for the bottom. I'm going to tag these, use QMesh, and I'm going to push this down holding shift, maybe more than that. Click, hold shift, tag, hold shift. Let's insert this piece again. Hang on, what's going on? Insert. Alright, and then we can just use QMesh to extrude this like so, and then we can just play with the bevels to create kind of like a rounded shape here. Something like that's fine. And let's just add some lights with 8. So I'm just gonna skip one like that. Click inset, sorry. Come on, insert each polygon, not the entire region. There, right click, QMesh, push this in. All right, and maybe let's click like a hole in here so that we can actually steal some shape. So I'm gonna insert region, the entire region, like that. QMesh, make sure I have 16. Like this. Actually, I'm gonna get rid of the symmetry because I don't need it at this point. We can just insert polyloops, a single one, tag these, and use the QMesh again, push that in, and then I can toggle these back on and create some lights as well. Inset each polygon, and then QMesh. All right. Just to add a extra detail, I'm gonna insert something around there and bevel it, and then use the QMesh to extrude this a tiny bit. All right, and just like that, we can still use symmetry, but I'm just gonna do it with the gizmo. So I'm gonna mask those, centered, and scale it just to give it a bit more shape. And with the C-modeler, what we can do is just slide these edge loop complete pieces just to make it a bit more rounded. And let's use the move brush. We are nearly done. Cool, so here's our UFO. And again, to bring it closer to the same style, what I'll do is let's copy this entire thing, go to our working file, go into the originals, paste it in here, and then duplicate it, send it back or send it out. Right? Go into solo mode, and what I'll do is Dynamesh with a bit more resolution than that, Dynamesh, and I use the polish. I think that's good. Let's bring in the trim dynamic, use symmetry as well. So this is kind of like the idea of using that radial symmetry, so we can still play around with these. Maybe damp standard brush. To add some details. The smooth brush, all of the brushes in this case would work with the radial symmetry. Let's bring in trim dynamic again. So again, all I'm doing here is just trying to bring this closer to the same style as the other pieces. All right. Maybe this needs a little bit more flattening. Yeah, I think that's fine. In fact, we could bring in the Gizmo 3D and taper that towards the top. And then scale it down. Nah, doesn't work like that. It was fine. It was fine the way it was. Maybe it's just that this sort of cabin area is too big. Yeah, maybe. Redynamesh all of this. Trim dynamic again. All right, I think that works. Let's use the damp standard brush to define this edge a little bit more, and let's go through the process of pre-process current. I reckon this one would work with just 1% decimation. Let's see. Yeah, maybe more than that. 0.5. I'm gonna, before I do any of these, I'm gonna check. Yeah, there's some issues there, so I'm gonna Dynamesh first. Let's pre-process again. That's what is giving me some kind of like artifacts in there. Pre-process. Now it looks a bit better. Yeah, I'm happy with that. So now it's just a matter of getting out of solo mode and placing this asset. So rotate like that. Maybe from this side. All right. We can play with the scale and all of this. By the way, I'm gonna duplicate one of the original, sorry, one of the pieces here, the ship, duplicate, and drop that out in here. And this one on its own, this is gonna be the one that one of the ones that is being stolen by the UFO. Oh, come on, what's going on? I scaled it with the with the symmetry on. It's roughly the same size as the other ones. So that's one. Maybe still in a couple actually. I just need to make them look that like they're panicking a little bit more than this. So it's gonna use the move topological brush and then just maybe mask an area and just try to move the legs away. Maybe the head as well. But we're pretty much done with this. I'm gonna delete this other one. All right. Yeah, that's the little scene, and we managed to complete it just in time. So there's a few other things that I want to do. Maybe use some fiber mesh, the stylized fiber mesh, to add some grass here and there. Maybe add some smoke coming out. Also the kind of like the beam of light that is being shooting from the UFO to steal this. Maybe it is halfway through already. Yeah, and maybe just add some rocks and some stuff also being dragged with the actual ship. So yeah, I reckon next session we'll finish up this. It's pretty close to finish in terms of the placement and modeling, and then we add some colors and we'll set it up for a quick render, and that's done in the next session. Alrighty, let's see if you have any questions so far, and I'm happy to answer any questions before I wrap up today. Maybe you can create some clouds too, similar shape. Yeah, I was maybe I could do that. I could explore that idea with the smoke. We'll see how that goes next time. I'm gonna show you a couple of other techniques. Can you hear the lamp scream? Cool. All right. No worries. So no more questions. Excellent. So yeah, I'm gonna leave it here. Let's do a quick render of this. Yeah, I'm gonna leave it here, and in the next session what I'll do is like I said, finish this scene up and we set it up for render. I'm gonna take this into Keyshot real quick and and share with you guys on social media the work that we did today. But yeah, I'm gonna leave it here, and hopefully you have found this interesting. Hopefully next time I have other additional techniques and tricks that I can show you. Cool. Thanks so much for joining, guys, and I'll see you next time.